Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Life YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jerla Preveline. I am a pastor, a life coach, a counselor, and I am here to help you connect with other women's stories to validate your own stories. If you are here for the very first time, welcome. Stay for a while, join us. On this show, we talk about women, their traumas, their joys, pain, and how they triumph over all of that. And we also look to see how they've integrated Jesus and therapy into their healing journey. We are continuing to go through a series called Starting Over Again. Ooh, yes. Basically, after you've experienced pain, loss, trauma, grief, all of those things, how do you start over again? Today, we have with us my dear friend, my pastor, Naima Lett. And in just a few seconds, she will share so much wealth, and you will want to follow her everywhere she goes on these social media streets. So hold on just a second. So, as promised, we have Naima Lett, Reverend Dr. Naima Lett. Naima and I go way back.
Way back.
Way back. I remember the first time I met you was in New Jersey. And I don't think you remember this experience, but I remember it as vividly as like it happened yesterday. We were in a church service together at Abundant Life Church,
Mhm.
and they were passing the collection plate around, and I didn't have any money to put in the collection plate. And Naima turned over and said, "Hey, sis, I got you. Can I give you some money to put in that collection?" She doesn't remember it, but I remembered it. And at that time, we weren't friends. We hadn't gone to seminary together. We hadn't done any life together. I hadn't seen any of her shows, nothing. We were just two average church folks in the church, and that's what Naima did. And y'all, guess what? We have become friends.
Yes.
She has become my pastor, my children's pastor. She has been mentoring and coaching my kids.
Yeah.
When they acting up, I call Naima. I'm like, okay, they acting a fool. You gotta call me, talk me off the ledge. That's who Naima has been to me. But professionally, I want Naima to share a little bit about her professional journey, where she's been, what she's done, and where she is right now. So, Naima, why don't
Yeah.
you give our audience the not the friendship, version of who you are? Because I can talk about our friendship all day, but I
Yeah.
want them to know that you ain't just my friend, Naima. You are all that in a bag of chips, and God is doing great things through you in Hollywood. So tell us a little bit about your professional journey, who you are, where you've been, and where you are today.
Thank you. Thank you. Will do. And before I jump into that, thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me. I am loving, I told you this, but I'm going to say it publicly. I am loving all of this relaunch, honey. I am loving all of it. I'm loving the branding. I'm loving
Yes.
it. And I'm so proud of you. I am so thrilled at how you have traversed and gone on the journey,
Yeah,
right? And how you keep putting one foot in front of the other.
that's right.
And stop when you need to,
Yep.
be still when you need to, and then move when you need to. And so I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful to hold this space with you. So thank you.
Yes. Yes. See, I told y'all. I told y'all. So
Um,
tell us.
I started professionally as an actor. I have known since I was 3, 4 years old that God had given me a gift. And I just love storytelling. I love being a part of stories. I had a lot of energy. My family is very, very talented, but also very brilliant. So I think I was the only one that actually saw a career in the arts.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that my family is not creative and artistic. All of them are. They just needed something a little bit more stable.
Yes. You are the one that jumped in.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what it is? It's because I kept thinking when I wake up every day, I want to be doing something that I love, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to be, thinking about doing something that I love. I actually want to put my hands and my heart and my soul into something that I love on a daily basis. And so that for me just, solidified that one, I wanted to be in the creative arts and in the performing arts, but two, I could make it happen, right? And there's a lot of faith involved in that. I try to tell people that artists are the most faith-filled people that I know because you're literally making something out of nothing, right? Like you are you are
You can
making.
say that again. Artists are the most faith-filled people. I can add a question there, but I'll let you finish your intro because that's
but
not what we believe.
but we are, and you're creating something out of nothing and believing that you can actually be a part of the 1% of artists that actually make a living at it, right? Like 1% of artists make more than $10,000 a year in their craft, right? And so, it's like you're having to believe that not just that you have talent and know-how, but that you actually can make a way. And so we forge our way. And of course, my faith came from my belief in the Lord, and then very early on, and I'll get into a little bit of the story as we talk about loss, but very early on, when I came into my own relationship with Jesus, I had questions and I wanted to know why was I here on this earth, and once that answer was revealed, then from there on out, like I knew that my artistry, creativity, I knew that it all had a purpose, and that just gave me so much life.
Yes.
Gave me so much life. So I started in as an actor, performer, dancer, singer, had a wonderful career in theater and film and television. And then God called us to plant a church. And so we planted a church here in Beverly Hills, California. And
Yes.
so the church is now 12 years old. hard
Good
to believe that.
God.
But and along the way have done so many other things. So I've worn a lot of different titles in terms of what people call what I do, but my purpose has been the same, right?
Wow.
Like my calling has been the same, and I just flow. I just flow where God wants me to be and what He wants me to do.
What is that calling for you? How do
Uh,
you
yeah, go ahead.
share that calling? What is that calling for you?
In my early 20s, just in my quiet time with the Lord, and again, this is coming from me asking, why am I here? Why am I here? And He led me to Jeremiah 1. And so I have a prophetic call. I thought originally when I knew that He was, saying, look, I have put my word in your mouth, right? I at that point interpreted it as I would be able to share the word of God creatively. And I have, and I do. But over time, aren't you glad He doesn't give us everything all at once?
Not all at once. It never is all at once.
Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad He gives us in little bite-sized
Just a
pieces?
little bite size. Because we couldn't handle it.
We couldn't. Oh my God! If He had told me, if He had shared the whole thing, I think I would have turned around and run. I would have been Jonah. Y'all would have been like, she in
That's
a whale.
right.
She in a
Where's she
pit.
going? Where Naima going, y'all?
She got hemmed up in a whale, people.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so He, that's what I thought at the time. But over time, I began to realize that no, he actually meant he was putting his word in my mouth, his
Wow.
actual word in my mouth to
Literally.
literally. And so that is my my calling, my purpose,
Yeah.
and my joy and passion,
That's awesome.
to speak what he says.
That is
And I can do
awesome.
that again. I can do that in a lot of different fields. So yeah.
Now, I know just because you get a call from God, life isn't just smooth sailing, because oftentimes I think the misconception about the faith is that when you're called by God, life is easy, there are no struggles, there
Mm-hmm.
are no challenges. So tell us that ain't true, you know. Uh Tell us the real deal. Like, what's been happening? What is your story of struggle
Yeah.
in the midst of that calling?
Yeah. So when you reached out, I literally had to sit down and go, which story do I want to focus on?
Oh,
Because because
baby.
truly, it's been a lifetime of loss. It's
Yeah.
been a lifetime of brokenness and healing, brokenness and healing. Um,
Mhm.
and I mean, that's very biblical, right?
Mhm.
That's a very biblical concept. You know, it is woven in our theology. There is life, there is death, there is resurrection, right? Like
Mhm.
there, this is this is woven throughout our theology. However, when I began to experience it, especially having known the Lord from a very early age and having walked with Him, I was woefully unprepared
Ooh.
for how to deal with and process loss.
Mhm.
And I thought about it for a while, and I just thank you for doing this series, because I just had to sit for a second and go, why was I unprepared? One, I think that our culture has a worship of winning, right?
Mm.
We worship winning.
Mhm.
We have a very high priority and value on winning. No one wants to lose. No one wants to talk about loss. No one wants to be associated with loss. We had a whole insurrection, child, because one of our leaders decided that he did not want to accept loss. So
Hey.
so when we can go all the way up to the tippity top of the food chain and go, loss is not something that anyone, particularly in our Western culture, wants to be associated with.
Yeah.
So we're not taught very early on how to embrace loss, how to process loss. We're
Right.
taught reject it, get away from it, ignore it,
Yeah.
like and so I probably spent the majority of my childhood competing to win. Now, granted, I also grew up in a house full of men,
Mm-hmm.
got three brothers, very competitive. And so, we just weren't associated, or could not be associated with loss. Put
Right.
on top of that, we were African Americans in a Southern town. And,
Mm.
and literally your life could be on the line,
Mm.
right? If you are not aware and discerning, and always, it's like we created this hustle, that is, we've just got to be the best. We've got to do, we got to be twice as good to get half as much.
Right. Right.
So there's all of this going on where, all I got to do is, all I want to do is win, 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 no matter
Right.
what. It's like, you're
Right.
like, just got to win. But when I was in college, I went to Howard University in DC.
Yay.
Was in college,
HU.
you know. And so my mom passed away when I was a sophomore, and my world crashed, right? My
Mm.
whole world crashed. I did not know that could happen. And, I mean, it doesn't matter how many goldfish have passed away, how
Mm.
many pets that you've had to lay to rest. There is nothing like
Mm.
saying goodbye to your mom. And
Mm.
And because I was in college, I wasn't there as she was going through the journey, and it was cancer. And so
Sorry.
I thank you. I did not, I didn't see it coming because her faith was so strong. She believed she was healed.
Yeah.
And so we believed she was healed. And so I was so blindsided because I just knew she had the kind of faith that could move mountains.
Wow.
And I knew she believed in the miraculous. We believed in the miraculous. There was just no way she was going to die. And she passed away. And I could not, I couldn't even begin to understand
Wow.
what I was supposed to do after that, right?
Yeah.
A week after, saying goodbye, my dad put me on a plane back to DC. It's like,
Wow.
finished the semester.
And
And
went back to college?
I went on autopilot, and that
Mhm.
autopilot made the dean's list and got a 4.0. Like
Wow.
that
So
autopilot
you
was
tucked it away. You tucked it. You tucked it away.
what could, again, I had not been taught how, I didn't even know the stages of grief. I didn't
Mm.
know what that was. I didn't have the language, right? Like
Yeah.
I I just, and then faith wise, like I'm grateful for the loss in the sense that it made me own my own faith, and I mean I had one of those, Lord, if you are real, I need you, because
Right.
like I'm not going to be able to get through this. I'm not going to be able to get through this.
Right. Right. When did you start processing that loss? Because as a sophomore
A year
student,
later, a year
yeah.
later, it was a
Mm.
year later. I came on exchange, so I did an exchange program from Howard out here to USC in Los Angeles, University of Southern California, and that being out of my norm, kind of fish out of water, actually forced me to begin to grieve,
Wow.
because everything that was happening, I wanted to talk to my mom about, and she
Mm.
wasn't here, right?
Mm.
And so it was the first time I was out here, 80 degrees sunshine and a breeze, you know what I mean? Like, we supposed to be living literally, like
Right.
I'm having stage readings with celebrities, like I'm living a life, but I was crying. Like I would just have these outbursts of tears, and I couldn't understand it. I didn't know, and so listen, if you all are in college and you are listening to this, or if you are parents and you got kids in college, please tell them to use the resources. You're paying for it anyway. You are paying.
Right. Right.
Use these resources, use the therapist, use the
That's
counselor.
right.
Look, you paying for it, whether you
That's
use it or not.
right.
Go use it. So I ended up in the counseling office at USC talking about, I'm crying and I don't know why.
Uh, I know they were looking at you like, excuse me?
So they put me with a one-on-one counselor, and as we began to talk, that's when, it was like, well, I lost my mom a year ago, and of course you're grieving, right? Like, of course,
Yes.
grief will wait on you, child. Grief
Yeah.
will wait until you are ready to process,
Ooh,
or even if
grief
you're not
will
ready.
wait on you.
it's not
Yes.
it's it's not going to go anywhere. And I mean, I know many times we think, well, I could just move on, but it will wait.
Yeah.
And then it'll start, having, so I was in a one-on-one counseling, and then they also put me in a group counseling.
Wow.
And there were people losing their hair. There were people who had boils on their,
Wow.
like, because it's the grief is trying to work itself out some kind of
Right.
way. And it's
Right.
like, well, if you won't acknowledge me, let me just flare up.
Mhm. Mhm.
So for me, it manifested in bouts of just weeping, but
Mm.
other people were having physical manifestations, because it's got to come out, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to keep living and not die, we got to process this stuff.
Right.
So that was the first time that I, entered into a relationship with counselors
Yeah.
who probably shaped my entire ministry, because from the very beginning of ministry to present, I will tell people in a heartbeat, yes, we have our scriptures, we have our faith, but honey, you need counseling. Like you
That's right.
need a therapist. Thank God for the jewelers of the world, because you actually need someone to help you process
That's
through that
right.
which you have no clue. I didn't know about the anger. I didn't know, like they explained to me the grief, so
Right.
I could wrap my mind around the stages. And then here, newsflash, the stages are not even linear.
Right.
Like one day you could experience the sadness and the depression. Another day you
That's
can
right.
experience anger. You could flip back into denial. Like, it's
Hmm.
just, it was all over the place, but at least I now had names for it, right? Like,
That's
like,
right.
like at least I could now identify, okay, this is a part of the journey, and not feel as if somehow I wasn't okay,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
How
no,
did,
I'm okay in this.
yeah, how did that uh, counseling help you either start over again or um figure out your way forward? How did that transitional um moment help you move forward in life?
Absolutely. So, what I think was so precious about the counseling was it gave me the space to be honest about what I was feeling.
Hmm.
And because I was able to be honest about what I was feeling, I was able to be honest in my prayers.
Yeah.
I was able to be honest in my relationship with the Lord. And I think that was the first time I realized that the truth really does set free,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
I could have a real authentic relationship with a real God who actually was with me throughout the journey of the pain and the
That's
sorrow.
right.
And
That's right.
so that gave me permission to start afresh with him, right? And build a relationship with him that has lasted for decades, right? It just goes deeper and deeper, in a daily relationship with him.
Yeah.
And also, in the midst of it, it gave me permission to be able to say to, all of my friends and family, like, there are some things that died in me that died with my mom.
Mm,
And so there's some expectations there, there's some hope that just, like the realization that we are mortal, and we
that's
will
right.
release, the
That's
innocence of
right.
life
That's
died.
right.
But I believe what was reborn, or where I was able to start again, was this realization. And this is where I began to ask that question, why am I here?
Yeah.
Right? Why am I here?
Such an important question. And I feel like grief has a way of deepening that question for you so that you can answer it.
Yes.
You no longer has the luxury of waiting. you know, no longer have the luxury of saying, I'll wait. I can evade. I don't have to deal with the question of why am I here. Grief is like right in your face. Why
Yeah.
are you here?
Why are
And
you here?
you
What
need
are
to
you doing?
respond to me.
Yeah. What are you doing? And
Yeah.
that wrestling with mortality helped focus me.
Mm,
I became uber focused on what it was that I was going to do in this life, right? And it allowed me to really fully embrace that I was called,
mhm.
that I fell head over heels in love with Jesus, like giddy, rolling on the floor, kind of
Right.
just,
Right.
just head over heels, all in. I went back to Howard on fire. Like I was just,
You were
you know,
different.
I was different. I was
Mm,
different because I was able to, one, understand that it was a process. It was going to
yeah.
be, it was going to be a lifelong process. Like the grief didn't just disappear. I actually had to go through it, and
Yeah.
process through it. And really, I believe that, that kind of understanding of the cycle
Right.
is what helped me, because after that I have experienced, we've gone through loss after loss, but I kind of understand that it's a journey. We go
That's
through
right.
the loss, but there's hope, like I will be able to process through this and come out on the other side of it.
That's right. That's right. That is so good. To lose a parent at that season of life, a season where you're becoming yourself, a season where you haven't fully firmed up on your identity and you're just now starting to ask questions, and boom, loss happens. And you're having to integrate all of that with loss, with becoming, with that transitional. What a challenging, but yet as you're sharing, God was with you in it. And God, even then, God solidified your calling during that season of life. What what would you say to people who are listening who have lost particularly a parent? I think there's something that happens when you lose a parent. What would you share, or any words of encouragement or affirmations that you would share with these people who have lost a parent, whether they were close with the parent or not? Because I think sometimes we have qualifiers for grief, that if you were close with the parent, you deserve to grieve. And if you were not close, then you shouldn't be grieving. But loss is loss. Any words of encouragement or affirmations for people who are listening who have lost a parent?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes across the board, right? But I think that in dealing with loss, particularly when it comes to parental love and care, or any family member at that, for that matter, what I found to be the most encouraging, or what helped me get through it, was knowing that I was not alone, right? So for each and every one of you that may be experiencing loss, know that you're not alone. This isn't new, right? You don't have to try to figure it all out. Like lean on the resources and the people that you can, right? Because each one of us, like this is a part of this. Like we don't get out, we don't leave this side without going through that death portal, right? Like,
Right.
of course, there was Enoch, there was Elijah. Those are the only two brothers I know that got out of here.
Right.
This
Right.
transition.
Right.
All of us are going to experience these losses, and when we do, I want us to be prepared, right? Like I want us to have a theology that includes loss, and again, that that we can embrace and understand that God will always be with us.
That's right.
There's a scripture that would come up over and over again through these seasons of loss that I've gone through, and it's like 2 Corinthians, and Paul is he's going off, and he actually says, I'm speaking as a fool, right? But it's 2 Corinthians 11, and I just want to give you guys this list real quick. Do I have time? Can I give you the
Yes,
list?
you do. Yes, you do. Give us the list.
This is what Paul says, right? And I want you to hear all of the loss in this. And he says, he says, are we servants of Christ? And he says, I'm talking out of my mind, but here's the list. He says, I have worked much harder, been in prison more often, been flogged more severely, been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. He says, I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from the Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. He says, I have labored and toiled and have gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have gone without food. I have been cold and naked. And then he ends and says, and besides all of that, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. That is a list of loss.
Yes.
And that is wrapped up
Yes.
in his question of, am I a servant of Christ? Right?
Yes.
He's saying, I know I'm talking like a fool, but this has been my reality. My reality doesn't look like all I do is win, 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 no matter what. My reality looks like I have lost and lost and lost and lost. and
Yes.
and then I'm still, because he goes on to the crushed, perplexed, crushed, but still,
Yes.
you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
It's those things where it's like we're not counted out, but this is a part of our walk with Jesus, right?
Mm.
So I wrote my own list, right? And so,
Yes.
for those that need a tangible, you need like you listen to this and you go, well, what can I do?
Right.
Write your own list, right?
Right.
It's a healthy thing to list. And this doesn't mean that we're victims. It doesn't mean we're going to stay in it. But
Mm.
sometimes it's just good to go, okay, what does my Paul list look like, right? And I lost my mom when I was in college. I had to lay down my dream career of acting over and over again. It wasn't just one time.
Mm-hmm.
Repeatedly, the Lord asked me to lay it down and pick it
Mm-hmm.
back up again and lay it down and pick it back up again.
Oof.
I've experienced constant loss when it comes to just trying to fulfill the call of God putting his word in my mouth as a woman in ministry. I've
Yeah.
lost so many relationships. I've lost so many churches. Like you know what I mean? Just trying to walk out the calling and be faithful to God. I have experienced great loss with his people,
Right.
right? My husband was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4, the first year that we were married.
Yeah.
He had to transition into survival mode. I carried our grief. When he
Yeah.
lost his hair, I carried our grief. When he lost weight, I carried our grief.
Yeah.
When things got tricky sexually, like I carried the losses,
Yeah.
right? Fast forward, we moved to LA. The Lord took us through a season he called financial strangulation.
Oof.
We had financial loss, not because we weren't working, not because we weren't, degreed and in college,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
but he took us through the loss of material things so that we would not depend on them in the city of Beverly Hills,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
can't need anything from anybody to do what he needs us to do here, right?
Right. Right.
We've gone through fertility issues for 12 years. We've had miscarriages. We've, had countless failed IUIs, IVF, like you name it, we've been through it. And
Wow.
in the midst of all of that, I keep going back to we we experience the losses, but God is with us in the middle of it, right? He's with
Mm.
us. He's with us. He is God with us. He is Emmanuel. He walks with us. He talks
That's
with us.
right.
He's a God that cries with us. At one point, all I could do was just kind of
That's,
lay prostrate and weep,
that's
right?
right.
Like that. Sometimes there are no words, and sometimes I would get up to journal and have nothing to write. It's
Right.
just, but he was with me.
That's right.
He
That's
was with me. He is God with us. So I want each person to be able to, you go through your list, you get it out, you put it in, you put it on paper, and then go, has God ever left me through this?
hmm.
Because my experience has been he weeps with me.
That's right.
Now, I I have occasionally said, well, why are we both weeping? You can actually do something about this, Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to be pressed on every side, but not crushed, and perplexed, but not
Oh, Lord, that's the question right there. That's the $1,000,000 question.
do something,
Why?
right? But if we are going to follow a Christ,
Yeah.
a Lord who laid down his life, who embraced loss, but was resurrected. If we're going to follow him, he says, hey, take up your cross,
And
follow me.
follow me. That's
Right.
right.
So,
This is so good.
yeah, but
So good.
that's
Wow.
that's what I would encourage.
I
Create, create,
love.
create a faith and a theology that includes loss, not trying to get
Woo.
away, not trying to get away from it.
Create a faith and theology that includes loss
Yeah.
and not try to run away from it.
Yeah. Because we're all gonna experience it. right?
That is great. That is great. Thank you so much. This is good. I love the idea of the list. I love that we can embrace it rather than run from it.
Mhm.
For me, that posture, um, you know, allows us to not be shocked every time,
Mhm.
but go to God every time when there's loss, you know?
Absolutely.
I really, really appreciate your voice there in helping us change our theology around pain and suffering, because we don't have a good theology of pain and suffering in the West.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your voice as pastor, as a human being, as a woman, as a Black woman who has experienced loss and who can speak into that. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Will you
Thank
come back?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would love to have you come back, particularly to talk in about the arts. Where is God in the arts?
Yes.
Christians are kind of scared of the arts. We're afraid.
Which I don't understand because God created it. Like he's
We're
created,
afraid. So
he's
I
the
want
most
you to come back. I want
creative.
you to come back to theologize the arts for me. We need to see God in the arts. And
Absolutely.
I need a pastor, a theologian to help point us to the arts, the Hollywoods.
Amen.
Where is God and what is God doing in Hollywood? So that's a promise. I'm going to send you an email so we can put a date on the calendar to talk about this very thing. Where is God in Hollywood?
Absolutely. I would love to. I would love to because he's here. He's here.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Thank you once again. I appreciate you. I will have you back. And for those of you who are watching, I will put Reverend Dr. Naima's information in our bio so you can follow her, so you can learn from her and be pastored by her. She does church online. You can find her on YouTube. You can find her on Instagram, on Facebook. Thank you all so much for watching. We love that you are a part of this conversation. I will see you next time so you can continue to engage in this conversation about how do we start over again when there's been loss. So thank you once again for watching.